Most have come across the aptly named Mad Pumpkinhead, and noted the helmet which looks like a big golden pumpkin. There doesn't seem to be much to these characters, as they lumber about, flailing their weapons and slamming their heads into the ground. But could there be more depth to these creatures? Maybe not. There isn't much, but let's look at what information is available. The pumpkin helm is an item which can be dropped from these enemies, and its description states, "The inside of the helm is pitch black, keeping the crazed warrior within from panicking. Perhaps its rather roomy interior also helps alleviate feelings of pressure and claustrophobia." You can also summon the Mad Pumpkin Head with ashes, which are dropped by the burial watchdogs in the minor Erdtree catacombs. The ashes describe, "Spirit of a mad soldier with a large, brawny physique. Though he has stifled his panic within the dark confines of his helmet, he rampages as if driven mad when agitated by bloodshed or the humming of insects. This mad soldier is all that is left of a broken gladiator." Interestingly enough, this creature apparently used to be a gladiator. There are indeed other gladiators, known as duelists, who you can find in some specific locations, and even gain their armor sets, the Duelist set and the Rotten Duelist set. Of the two, the prior has a description which provides some minor details. Bronze helm decorated with innumerable snakes, worn by gladiators who were driven from the Colosseum. The wearer becomes a slightly easier target for foes. The snake is viewed as a traitor to the Erdtree, and the audience delighted in seeing these bronze effigies beaten and battered. The duelists were clearly pitted against others for the entertainment of watching them become pulverized, and their armor signifies that they were essentially the enemy. But if we look at the Mad Pumpkinhead armor, there aren't any snakes on it. In addition, we can often see the pumpkin heads with various soldiers, and they don't seem to be exiled in the same sense as the duelists. Looking further, there are two talismans which reference the gladiatorial combat held in honor of the Erdtree, the Ritual Shield Talisman and the Ritual Sword Talisman. In describing this, they also mention the following. The practice had died out by the age of King Consort Radagon, but remains of the arenas where ritual combat took place can still be found in every land. An interesting side note, the Sword Talisman is found within a chest after killing the demi-human queen Gillica. While the demi-humans are now seen as impure, there was once an attempt to make peace with them, as the demi-human queen's staff describes. Why the queen was guarding this talisman is anybody's guess, but I found it interesting that both gladiators and the peace with the demi-humans seems to have ended relative to Radagon's reign. But that's something of a different topic, maybe for another video. These talismans come with reference to the Crucible and the Crucible Knights, knights who served Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, who sought to maintain a system of belief and worship of the primordial form of the Erdtree, known as the Crucible. When comparing the shapes of the medallions to that on the helmet, there are some vague similarities between designs, although it's a stretch to claim that they're purposefully based on one another. However, the consistency and repetition of certain shapes and colors could point to a thematic connection of something meant to be reminiscent of the Erdtree, Crucible, or Godfrey, especially considering the golden color, which has become degraded. There is one last tangential thread, though, which leads us to one other potential possibility. Outside of the game, from the Fextra Life wiki, the description for the Mad Pumpkins states them as ogre-looking. I'm unsure if this phrasing is used anywhere in the game, but if it were, there are only one other group of creatures which I know to be called as such. The Omens. While most of them can be found without horns, covered in pustules and sores and in worsened conditions, they aren't all equally grotesque, as we can see with Margit and other examples of Omen royalty. Although his arms and legs do both appear to be more human-like, we don't get to see much more besides his head and his tail, which might be a good thing. Considering that gladiatorial combat, the worship of the Crucible, and some attempts at peace with the demi-humans took place during the reign of Godfrey, in addition to the fact that he himself had Omen children, could it be possible that the Mad Pumpkins are somehow involved among these themes? What if the Mad Pumpkins were omens, salvaged by the Crucible, but driven mad in the process? What if they were actually born from royalty, and underneath that helmet are layers of horns? Maybe their ferocity is the result of them being demi-humans, while the helmet acts to induce the darkness which incites their ferocity. Given that the size of the pumpkin head doesn't seem to match other gladiators or most other enemies in the game, and because their bodies don't match the typical disfigurement of omens, we're left to guess what they are, as well as what's hiding under that helmet. What we can be sure of at least is that they are somehow in alliance with the Erdtree. They once faced gladiatorial combat, and they will continue to be stricken with madness whenever there is sound or bloodshed. Every once in a while, you'll come across one who plants a tattered flag, bare of any insignia, showing that even in madness, they still stand for something. But for what?